Hi there, it's Kevin from the Figaro Owners Club. It's great to be with you. We're at Didcot, Oxford in the UK, and the reason we're shooting this video today, I thought it'd be really interesting for you Figgy owners to find out what happens or what should happen on a service. So we're at the Figaro Shop. This is the General Manager, Christian Brookes. Hi Christian. So what we're here to do today is to hopefully go over some of the things that you do as the Figaro Shop.
Absolutely.
When you service the car.
We speak to a lot of owners, and basically your local garages are absolutely fine to service Figaros. We've got no problem with that, but there are certainly a lot of areas that get missed, or not necessarily missed but not picked up on, shall we say, being an older vehicle. So something that we do here at the Figaro Shop is we've devised an annual service checklist so that we can check off exactly what we need to be looking for in line with the Figaro, so that we can see how they're maturing.
It's tailored specifically to the Figaro, because obviously
100%.
you know the areas that would need to be looked at more than maybe a general garage.
Yeah, absolutely. So this will pick up on areas that we know mature more than others. It will also pick up on specified areas which we know fail on Figaros, especially when it comes down to MOTs and things like that. Even on Belle, as we know, it's been 34 years old, and there's stuff that might be on there that you don't know.
Of course, no.
You know,
no,
so
exactly.
it's perfectly the right way of doing it, to make sure we're comprehensively covering everything. So there's no hidden surprises, basically.
Yeah, I mean, to me, a general service, I just think is just an oil change. But it's more. But obviously, clearly, the first thing I'm noticing now is it's up on the ramp, so you can see underneath it. So maybe if you took your car to a, not that I'm trying to say this, but if you took your car to a normal garage, would they maybe pick it up off the floor and do these
possibly not. So to do the oil, in theory, is easier to be off the road, on the ramp, I should say. It is easier, but we find that a lot of garages will classify an annual service in line with a more modern day vehicle. So for that, a lot of it is just purely changing the oil, changing the air filter. I mean, things, for example, that we see that don't get changed a lot are spark plugs and fuel filters, which we know are causing a lot more problems now, especially with fuel related issues. So those we change. That's on our service regime regardless. So an annual service, we do oil filter, air filter, fuel filter and spark plugs regardless. So they're the parts that we change regardless. And then we go into the visual checks and adjustments that we do on top.
Let's come and have a look.
Come and take a little look.
So you take us through the type of things that you'd be looking for.
Yeah, so just to give you an idea, this is the checklist that the technicians then fill out. So we have obviously the registration, the date, the mileage, and then on here all the items that we're checking off. Obviously the guys will tick off and cross off bits that they're not happy with, or they make notes on.
Comment against it if there's an issue.
So we have a hard copy of this that we keep hold of, but we also photocopy it and give it to you, so you've got it for your evidence as well. Because some people may decide that while it's here they might do some of those items while it's with us. Sometimes it makes sense if it's here for a day or two, and others will then pre-plan it in several months' time.
Depending on they've got the money to do it.
Exactly.
Next part.
So the first thing that we do is obviously we get it up onto a ramp, and then we take off all the wheels and we have a look at the braking system. So for that, we're looking at the moment you can't see because the wheels are back on, but the rear drums are on the back here. So we take the rear drums off and inspect on how the rear shoes are. We find a lot of the rear shoes are either fitted incorrectly. There's a specific way that needs to be done. So basically what tends to happen is the shoes, when you apply your brake, the shoes push out against the drums. If they're not fitted correctly, you actually get them only coming out at an angle, so you don't get the full braking specific.
How would they be fitted? People just wouldn't know, or maybe
correct. So the shoes are actually sided. So obviously you have a left and a right on it. And if they're not fitted in the right way round, you don't get them expanding the right way. So we get that hell of a lot. We also get, which you can see on the back of here, so this is what's called a rear wheel cylinder. It's actually located inside the actual drum, and basically they perish and leak. So we get a lot of that. So when you get really spongy brakes, that can normally be the telltale sign on where it comes from. When we go along the back, we then take a look at the exhaust system to see on how that's doing. As we know, these 9 times out of 10 start to rust. As you can see, she's doing very, very well.
I know you got your stainless one that I'd probably love to have on here, but this seems okay.
It's doing really, really well. Another key element that we then look for, so up here is what's actually called the rear brake clips. So you've got 3, so one on there, one in the middle, and one here. On just about every Figaro we get to see, those are broken. So then what happens is this pipe actually just rubs on the back of the actual petrol tank.
That's just
your brake line.
That's just the age of the car.
It's just pure plastic. And again, that is an MOT failure, obviously, for that purpose. We then have a look at the shock absorbers and the springs, so you can see whether the shock absorbers are misting or leaking, and whether the springs are corroded at all or snapping. The thing we have in the UK is that springs do corrode just for the weather that we've got. Obviously, if the cars are parked up all winter long and stuff like that, it's obviously going to be a lot slower, but cars that get used a lot more often do corrode, even everyday vehicles, it's common. We then actually have a look at further underneath the car, so just watch your head as you come under. So we're then looking at the actual seals. Again, we all know massively about all the seal sections.
This is the thing we talk about when people go and try and buy the car, is to have a look under here, isn't it?
So we're checking for corrosion all the way underneath, and this is actually quite a nice one to see, Kevin, as well, because not many people know this. You see these little slots in the seal as you go along?
That's right, yeah, this is where the
little
water
slots
comes
is where the water actually drains out. So we all talk about the water draining out from the roof inside the seals.
That's so
and that's the original way that it actually comes out.
So what happens is, what Christian's saying is, the top of the car, if you open your roof up, you'll see two little holes at the top, right left corner. In there they run down the front of the windscreen. In the corners they come along here, and then they come out of these tiny little gaps. So
the actual pipe actually comes out inside the seal into this section, so the water will just sit in here and then run out of them. So you can tell exactly why they rust.
That's a poor design, really, isn't it? Because that must get dirty, and then of course that fills with water. And the whole thing
you work out. So not only the inside of the seals are not protected from factory, so it's always going to start to rust. But then obviously over the years, if you get road dirt and grime or wax soil or anything like that, it blocks them up too.
Look how thin they are. They've got to be. I mean, you can't see it on the camera here, but they've got to be 2 mil thick.
Yeah, it's tiny. It's tiny.
That would just get crud on it. That's just such a
So that's the whole reason why we then modify it and put it outside the front wheel. So get rid of the moisture altogether.
That's right. The new design is you put a pipe in and it comes out here, which I think a lot of owners have been looking at now.
Definitely worthwhile.
That's really good.
We also then obviously have a look at the handbrake cables, which are just located up here to make sure they're not seized, because we get these really common as well, that because there's a handbrake cable for either side, that they seize up. This way, just over here at the back. So again, we grease those, make sure that's all working as it should do. We then move forward and we have a look at, obviously, this is the gear shift linkage, so we talk about the inhibitor bush.
That's right. So we have 2 of those,
correct.
You? One here,
which is just located on here, and then we have one right at the front of the gearbox.
That's the easier one to replace, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the easy one.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, that's the easier one to replace.
We're then taking a little look at the bushings, so just watch your head, Kevin, because you're quite close. We then have a look at the lower arms. So these are really common in here. They have a rubber bush around here, in here. And obviously then lastly in here you can just see it. So again, these perish. This can cause quite like loose steering almost. And it
so this is where it's going up and down on here, isn't it? As it goes along, the car is. These are the pivot points, I guess. You've got it. You've got it, and obviously then underneath here you've got a bore joint, obviously, so it moves obviously as well. We then have a look at the track rod ends, obviously to make sure they're all okay, which is these ones here. We have a look at the steering gaiters, so obviously on here because they're MOT failures. And then we move underneath a little bit further, so then we have a look at the steering rack, as we know they're common to leak as well. So we get it 2 ways normally. You can either have it leak outside of the gaiters, in which case the seals are leaking inside here, or you can actually get it leaking from the pinion, which obviously is built inside here. Isn't it? That is quite a common problem with the Figs. So
we do that, and we then look upwards, just because while it's on a ramp. So further up you see a great big round black disc, which is actually your master servo. And your brake master cylinder is attached to it. So unfortunately on Belle, as you can see, we picked up on an item on that one, that it does need to be replaced.
And the belt, you can see the belt quite clearly.
So again, it gives you access to everything. So this is the auxiliary belt, so you can check for perishing on these. You'll actually see we found that the sump gasket was leaking, so we've took the sump off so that we can start doing that, because obviously that was causing some leaks. And then what we actually do is I'll bring it down, and just so you can see underneath on the top as well.
So I guess if the car was in here and these were found, you would then contact the owner, so I guess, and say, look, we found these things, do you want us to do it now?
Absolutely, everything that we do here. So if it's just here for a service, for a day service, any items that we pick up on, we will always complete an estimate, and if you're picking it up, the estimate will go with you. Alternatively, if it's been transported around, obviously we'll email you that estimate so that we can have a chat about it. We believe that the more open we can be with what we see, the easier it is for you guys to understand. So inside the engine bay, You'll see that the fuel filter is this cylinder disc just down here where my finger is pointing, so you can just see it underneath.
Okay.
One thing that we also do is we actually change this rubber pipe as well. A lot of people don't change that. The reason why we change that is because it perishes and splits.
Okay.
So some people will get like a fumey smell when you're driving the vehicle, and this can be where actual petrol vapour is starting to come out of it, and eventually it will leak. So we do that. Air filter's obviously inside here.
We've had all your pipes. We've had the pipes changed, haven't we? I think it is.
Yeah, the silicone pipes are all changed.
Yeah, these are all done a year ago, I think, weren't they? Yeah.
So the spark plugs, obviously, we check those.
Yep.
We also check the timing just to make sure the timing's all correct as well. So the Figaro is 15 degrees advance is how it should be timed up.
Okay.
On the cam belt, and what we actually see is that a lot of garages, because technical data online isn't available for the Figaro, but a Micra is.
Yes.
So a Micra is actually only 10 degrees advanced.
Yes.
So that makes a huge difference in the way that the car performs.
Yes.
So if you feel that the car is really sluggish, it can just be something as simple as that.
Right.
So that's one thing that we always check on the service as well, because at least we can advise on that and we can adjust it if needed.
And the other thing is, if you can come around here with the cameras, we've asked for the alternator to be changed, which you've just done. Now, there's been some issues with the alternators, as you say. There's been another. I mean, we've got to remember these cars are all 34 years, 33, 34 years old now. Most of 99% of them, as I understand it, would have the original alternator in. So this basically, just explain what this does.
Yeah, so the alternator basically, when the vehicle is running, it's what puts power and charge to the battery.
It's connected here with the belt, so that spins round and
correct.
It's like a dynamo.
Basically, your battery will start the car.
Okay.
And then once it's running, the alternator and the battery power the rest of the vehicle.
Yes. Okay.
So if, for example, the alternator fails, you will last a period of time until the battery goes flat, and then all of a sudden it would just die on you.
Again, what's happened to poor old Adam?
Yeah, Adam had it the other day. You know, and one thing that we do is, you'll see on this list, is we actually check the voltage.
Yes.
So on these we record with a voltmeter what they're putting out. The problem that we've got is unless it gives us a reading that's low or different from what it should be, then obviously we can only advise that it's okay at that time.
I would suggest people have it done in the next year or so. I mean, it's a preventative thing.
My personal thing is, the way that we've tried to work for as long as possible at the Figaro Shop is preventative measures.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, the last thing you want to do, I mean, it was only at the rally last year. If this
fails on the motorway as well, if you're in, you know, you're bombing along in the fast lane and this fails, you know, you're going to be in a bit of trouble, aren't you?
Yeah, well, you've only got
the car will just start to slow down.
Was it the Netherlands, wasn't it? That
the
Netherlands,
that's right.
We had to get one out to,
yes,
you know, so it really
Luxembourg.
Luxembourg, sorry.
That was Alan.
It really does depend on, you know, where it fails, of what a sticky position it can put you in.
So I think, I'm recommending on the camera here that in this video that people look at this certainly in the next few years.
And so in terms of obviously costings for this, obviously the parts online, you can see it through our shop, but in terms of labour, it's like an hour. So the labour is so low on it, it's not something that's going to be here for hours for us to do.
You take the old one out, do you?
We do, so it's on exchange itself.
So there's a bit of money saving the fact that you take the old one.
Yeah, absolutely. So we, obviously, if you're here in the shop, we don't charge a surcharge because we just take one away. If you're having it on mail order, then you have the option to either
send it back.
Or if you don't want to do a surcharge, you have to pay a bit more to cover.
And it is something I guess you could do yourself if you if you had to. It's not that difficult.
No, it's really not. You know, like I say, for us, the guys here, it takes them about an hour, maybe just under, depending on how the bolts come off. But in general, it's not a difficult job to do. You know, so if you're a dab hand, you have to be a little bit careful with the electrics and disconnecting the battery and stuff.
Yes.
But in general, it's not a hard job to do, but definitely a worthwhile one to do. And then we just go over the rest of the vehicle. So we're then looking at obviously all the hinges and the latches, making sure they're all greased up and working as they should do. For us, it's just giving you as much knowledge as possible to give you the right choices.
Yes. I mean, we're going on a rally in the next couple of weeks, the Devon rally, so the last thing we want to do is break down there, and that's the reason Belle's here today. So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, we picked up on that the brake fluid obviously was quite high with moisture content. So if you look at it in here anyway, you can see that the brake fluid actually looks very, very dark. Normally it should just be like almost look like vegetable oil.
Really?
If you imagine like when you're cooking oil, it should be like this nice goldeny, like almost like treacle, a bit lighter than treacle. But obviously here is very, very dark. So we test the brake fluid and it tells us how much moisture is in the brake fluid.
Okay.
Obviously, the more moisture you've got in there, the worse the actual condition of the brake fluid is. So basically, if you've got moisture inside your line, and obviously you get to a hot temperature, and you're applying the brake, it means that you're not getting the full braking capacity, or you might get a spongy pedal because you're basically trying to push moisture together rather than obviously oil. So obviously, while we're changing the servo and the master cylinder, we do a complete flush through with the actual braking fluid as well. So you should actually feel quite a large difference with the braking when you actually leave here today.
Yeah, good. That's been really interesting. Are there any other points that you feel that you need to cover here now? I mean, it's been extensive, really, hasn't it?
Yeah,
what you've been talking about.
Like I say, for us is we would love to see as many customers as possible.
Yeah.
But we don't want to frighten people and say that you can't go to your local garage.
No.
Not at all. You know, that a lot of garages are completely fine. Just need to make sure that they're checking things for age.
Yeah.
You know, the big thing is that it's not just an oil and filter change.
Exactly.
That's what I'm kind of
I
getting
think
at.
the interesting thing is, guys, you know, if you've watched this video then and you do take it to your local garage, at least you know what they should be doing, what they should be looking at. And obviously the Figaro shop here, you know, specialists, you know exactly what areas to look at, and you've got experience from the fact that you know the things that will fail, and you go straight to those.
Absolutely,
whereas your local garage
absolutely.
may not know that. But as you say, you can take it to your local garage. It's a fairly simple engine to work on, isn't it?
Yeah,
And, you know,
it really is, you know, and that's what we don't want to horrify people and say that you must do this, you must do that, because there really are options, but it's just making sure things are done correctly.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of our time through our helpline and restorations line that we have are actually garages asking us about what to look for, you know, so we're still more than happy to do that.
Of course.
And we
Well,
work
absolutely.
with a lot of customers to do the same thing.
No, I mean, as a company, I think you've been brilliant at providing PDFs and information on how to fit loads of things. So you know, you don't shy away from the fact that you know people can do it themselves.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's been brilliant. Well, I hope you've enjoyed that at the Figaro shop. I thought that'd be really interesting. Been interesting for me to hear from Christian and the sort of things that they do here. So that's all from Kevin, and I'll see you all soon on the next one. Cheers, bye.